The evening bell tolled, its sound echoing through the quiet halls as the scent of incense drifted on the air. Aiden sat cross-legged under the ancient cedar tree, meditation beads in hand, his eyes gently closed. His features were sharp and handsome, and the small, focused furrow of his brow only added to his air of profound calm. His simple white robes were immaculate, making him seem a part of the monastery's deep, abiding silence. May peace find all sentient beings. Suddenly, a rustling sound broke his meditation. Aiden's brow tightened, and he slowly opened his eyes. A silver fox was curled at the base of the cedar's roots. A nasty gash marred one of its front paws, the blood a stark crimson against its snowy fur. Its amber eyes, wet with pain, looked up at him in a silent plea. Aiden paused. "Peace be with you," he murmured, but he didn't move. The fox, seeming to understand, dragged itself a few inches closer, letting out a soft, pathetic whimper. Aiden sighed, the sound barely disturbing the air. He rose and walked toward it. He knelt, gently examining the wound. "That's a bad cut," he said, his voice as cool and clear as a mountain spring. "We don't keep animals within these walls. I'll bandage this for you, and then you must be on your way." The fox blinked, as if it understood, and gave a compliant little nod. Aiden fetched a bowl of clean water and some gauze from the infirmary. His movements were gentle as he cleaned the wound. The fox was surprisingly still, only trembling slightly when the pain was sharp, never once struggling. "There," he said after wrapping the paw. He was about to stand, but he felt a tug on his sleeve. The fox had hooked his robe with its uninjured paw. "No," Aiden said, shaking his head. "This is a sacred place. I cannot let you stay." The fox's eyes immediately welled with tears. It looked up at him, its expression utterly pitiful, and let out another weak whine. Aiden stared down at it, his resolve wavering. 15 minutes later, Aiden's Spartan cell had a new occupant. The silver fox was curled on a meditation cushion in the corner, contentedly licking its bandaged paw. Aiden sat at a small desk, trying to resume his reading, but he could feel a pair of eyes fixed on him. He looked up and met the fox's bright, intelligent gaze. "Be quiet now," he said softly. The fox tilted its head, then obediently lay down and didn't move. As night fell, Aiden finished his evening meditation and saw that the fox had fallen asleep, its tiny body rising and falling with each breath. He quietly draped a small cloth over it before lying down on his own narrow cot. Sometime in the middle of the night, Aiden felt something crawl into his bed. He woke with a start. The fox had somehow climbed onto his cot and was now curled into a tight ball against his side. "Get down," Aiden said in a low, firm voice. The fox pretended to be asleep. Aiden reached over to lift it off the bed, but his fingers brushed against the bandaged paw. He hesitated. Finally, he sighed and let it be. "Just for tonight," he whispered, lying back down. In the darkness, the fox's mouth curled into a faint, triumphant smile. The next morning, when Aiden awoke, the fox was gone from his bed. He sat up and looked around, only to see it perched on his desk, happily chewing on a sacred text he had been transcribing the night before. "You little menace," Aiden said, his voice sharper than usual. The fox flinched, dropping the book. It looked at him with wide, innocent eyes, a smudge of ink on its muzzle. Aiden rushed over and rescued the tattered manuscript, his expression grim. Seeing his anger, the fox immediately flattened itself on the desk, covering its head with its paws and tucking its tail in tight, the very picture of remorse. Aiden took a deep, calming breath, reminding himself not to get angry. After a long moment, he said, "Fine, just get better and go." The fox peeked at him from under its paws. Seeing that he was no longer furious, it immediately started wagging its tail. The days that followed completely upended Aiden's disciplined life. When he tried to read, the fox would nap on his lap. When he meditated, it would tickle his face with its fluffy tail. And once, when he was taking his weekly bath behind a privacy screen, its head suddenly popped out from the side. "Get out," Aiden snapped, flustered. The fox just blinked at him. Instead of leaving, it trotted right in and sat by the edge of the large wooden tub, watching him. Aiden sank deeper into the water, leaving only his shoulders exposed. "You!" The fox suddenly dipped its paw into the water, then pressed a perfect, wet paw print onto his bare shoulder. Aiden stared at the mark in disbelief. He shot to his feet, splashing water everywhere. The fox yelped in delight and scampered away, leaving a trail of wet footprints behind it. A week later, the fox's wound had nearly healed. Aiden decided it was time to send it away. "Your paw is better now. It's time for you to go," he said, standing at the monastery gate. The fox sat on the ground, looking up at him without moving. "The forest is where you belong," Aiden said, turning to leave. Suddenly, a laugh like silver bells echoed behind him. "So cruel, father. Are you really going to kick me out?" Aiden froze, then slowly turned around. Where the silver fox had been sitting, a stunning young woman now stood. She looked to be in her late teens, with hair like a cascade of silver and a pair of fluffy fox ears peeking out from strands. 9 snow-white tails swayed gently behind her. She wore a simple dress of crimson silk and was barefoot, silver bells tinkling at her ankles. Aiden's composure shattered. "My name is Lyra," the girl said with a dazzling smile, spinning in a slow circle. "Thank you for taking me in for the last week. I have no way to repay your kindness, so I'll just have to give you myself." Aiden took a step back, his hand tightening around the meditation beads in his pocket. "Creature, do not speak such nonsense." Lyra pouted. "What nonsense? You saved my life, so naturally, I have to repay the debt." She stepped closer, almost pressing against him. "Doesn't your faith teach cause and effect? Well, this is it. You and me." Aiden retreated again, putting distance between them. Humans and spirits walk different paths. "Leave at once." But Lyra followed, her voice teasing. "You're so heartless. Just a few nights ago, you let me sleep in your bed, and now you want to throw me out?" "You were a fox," Aiden said, completely losing his cool. Lyra's grin was wicked. "I still am. I just have a more useful form now." She twitched one of her ears playfully. Aiden closed his eyes, forcing himself to be calm. "Miss Lyra, please have some self-respect." "Self-respect?" she mused, tilting her head. "Am I heavy? Why don't you pick me up and find out?" Aiden was speechless. He turned and walked away, his pace much quicker than usual. Lyra immediately ran after him, grabbing his arm. "Aiden, don't go." He yanked his arm away as if he'd been burned. "Do not touch me." Lyra wasn't fazed. She just laughed. "Your hands are so cold. Let me warm them up for you." She reached for his hand again. Aiden quickly clasped his hands behind his back, his expression hardening. "If you continue to harass me, don't expect me to be civil." Lyra blinked. "And how would you be uncivil? Lock me up? Perfect. Then I could see you all day, every day." Aiden found he had no response. It was impossible to reason with her. "So your silence means you agree?" Lyra chirped, circling him. "From now on, I belong to you." "Absurd," Aiden finally snapped. "I'm a man of the cloth, sworn to chastity. Please show some decency." Lyra stopped and looked at him with mock offense. "But I'm not a woman. I'm a fox spirit, and I'm here specifically to tempt you." Aiden stared at her, utterly defeated. He decided to ignore the infuriating creature and strode toward his cell. But she followed, right behind him, a constant stream of chatter. "Aiden, don't walk so fast. Wait for me. Are you hungry? I can go catch a rabbit for you. Are you thirsty? I'll get you some spring water. Are you tired? I can carry you back to your room." Aiden ignored her, walked into his cell, and tried to shut the door. But Lyra was too quick, slipping inside before it closed. "Out," Aiden said, his voice flat. Lyra shook her head. "Nope, this is my room. It's mine now too," she declared. "You took me in for 7 days. According to the rules of my people, I'm yours now." Aiden took a deep breath. "There is no such rule." "There is," Lyra insisted. "If a fox spirit is rescued, we must repay the debt with ourselves, or we'll be cursed." Aiden gave a cold, disbelieving laugh. "Superstitious nonsense." Suddenly, Lyra's eyes welled up. "You don't believe me?" She sniffled. "Fine, then I'll just go outside and let lightning strike me down." She made a dramatic move toward the door. Aiden instinctively grabbed her arm. "Stop this foolishness." Lyra's tears vanished, replaced by a triumphant grin as she threw herself into his arms. "I knew you couldn't bear to let me go." Aiden felt like he'd been struck by lightning himself. He pushed her away, but he used too much force. Lyra stumbled backward, Her ankle twisted, and she fell. "Ow!" she cried out, clutching her ankle. "That hurts." "You hurt me." Aiden frowned. "Stop faking." She looked up at him, her eyes shimmering with real tears. "It really hurts. Look, it's already swelling." Aiden hesitated, then walked over to check. Sure enough, her ankle was red and swollen. "Serves you right," he said coldly, but he knelt and gently touched the injured spot. "Ow, be gentle," Lyra hissed. Aiden pulled his hand back. "Can you walk?" Lyra shook her head, looking at him pitifully. "No, I need you to carry me." Aiden stood up, looking down at her. "Then I suppose you'll just sit there." Lyra immediately changed her tune. "Well, maybe I could lean on the wall, but it would hurt a lot." She tried to stand, then accidentally fell back down with a yelp. Aiden closed his eyes, took a long, suffering breath, and finally bent down to scoop her up into his arms. Lyra let out a little gasp, then beamed, wrapping her arms around his neck. "See? I knew you were a softie." Aiden's entire body went rigid. "Be quiet." But Lyra only pressed closer, resting her head on his shoulder. "You smell nice. Is that sandalwood?" Aiden didn't answer. He walked quickly to his cot and tried to put her down. Lyra just tightened her grip around his neck. "What's the hurry? Let's stay like this a little longer." "Let go," he ordered, his voice like ice. Lyra pouted, but reluctantly released him, allowing him to place her on the cot. Aiden turned to leave, but she grabbed his sleeve. "Aiden, my foot hurts," she whined. He shook her hand off. "Rub it yourself." "But I don't know how," Lyra said, blinking innocently. "Won't you help me?" Out of the question. Suddenly, she shifted back into her fox form. She limped over to him, rubbing her head against his leg and letting out a soft, pathetic whimper. Aiden stood frozen for a long moment. He let out a defeated sigh, bent down, and lifted the silver fox back onto the cot. Then, he began to gently massage her injured ankle. The fox closed its eyes in contentment, letting out a soft purr. Watching her, Aiden felt the corner of his mouth lift in a faint smile, though he quickly suppressed it. "There, rest for a night, and it will be fine," he said, standing up. The fox immediately transformed back into Lyra, who threw her arms around his waist. "You're the best, Aiden." Aiden froze. "Let go." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes dancing with mischief. "Aiden, you're blushing." He pushed her away and turned to leave, his steps uneven. "Don't go," Lyra called after him. "I'll be scared all by myself." Aiden didn't look back. "A spirit scared of the dark?" "Of course," she said cheerfully. "Especially when my handsome savior isn't with me." The only reply she got was the sound of his door slamming shut. Lyra wasn't bothered. She flopped onto the cot with a grin, hugging Aiden's pillow and inhaling his scent. "You can run, but you can't hide," she murmured to herself, her 9 tails wagging happily. Deep in the night, Aiden sat meditating in the scriptorium, but he couldn't find his focus. Lyra's mischievous smile and her amber eyes kept floating through his mind. "A distracting creature," he muttered, turning his meditation beads faster. Suddenly, he heard a soft noise at the window. Aiden looked up, instantly alert. A silver fox was perched on the windowsill, tilting its head as it watched him. "What are you doing here?" he frowned. The fox leaped gracefully into the room, shifting into Lyra as her bare feet touched the wooden floor. "I couldn't sleep alone," she whispered. "Go back," Aiden said coldly. But she walked right up to him and knelt down, resting her chin in her hands. "What are you reading? Can you teach me? You wouldn't understand." "Who says?" Lyra retorted. "I'm very smart. Go on, test me." Aiden closed his eyes, ignoring her. Lyra leaned closer. "Aiden," her warm breath, smelling faintly of wildflowers, brushed against his cheek. Aiden's eyes snapped open. She was inches away, her amber eyes glowing like honey in the candlelight. "Stay back," he said, his voice husky. Lyra's eyes widened as if she discovered something wonderful. "Aiden, your heart is beating so fast." She reached out to touch his chest. "Let me listen." Aiden grabbed her wrist. Insolent. Instead of being scared, she just laughed. "Your hand is so warm." He released her as if he'd been shocked, scrambling to his feet and backing away. "Please, maintain some propriety." Lyra stood and advanced on him, step by step. "What are you so afraid of?" "That I'll eat you up." She licked her lips. "I have to admit, the thought is tempting." Aiden backed into a bookshelf, trapped. Lyra placed her hands on either side of his head, pinning him. "You creature," he said, but his voice was unsteady. Lyra giggled. "You're so cute when you're flustered." She leaned in slowly. Aiden turned his head away, but he heard her whisper in his ear, "You've broken your vows, you know." Aiden froze. "What do you mean?" She pointed to his chest. "Your heart. It's no longer detached." Aiden's face paled. "Nonsense." Lyra stepped back, a playful smile on her lips. "Is it? I think you know the truth." She walked to the window. "I'll let you off the hook for tonight. Sleep well." With that, she shifted back into a fox and leaped out into the darkness. Aiden remained frozen, his mind in turmoil. He pressed a hand to his chest. His heart was still hammering against his ribs. "Peace be with me," he whispered, but the words couldn't banish the image of her smiling eyes. At dawn, faint light filtered through the mist-shrouded mountains. Aiden awoke from a light sleep, a heavy weight on his chest. He looked down. Lyra, in her fox form, was curled up asleep on him. Her 9 fluffy tails were draped over his body like a blanket, and her head was pillowed on his arm. His first instinct was to push her off, but he stopped. The morning light softened her silver fur, and her ears twitched with each breath. She looked almost adorable. The thought was so jarring that Aiden snatched his hand back, chiding himself for his foolishness. Sensing his movement, Lyra stirred, her amber eyes blinking open sleepily. She looked up at him, then stretched her neck and gave his chin a quick, soft lick. Aiden shot up as if he'd been electrocuted. Insolent, his sudden movement sent Lyra tumbling off the bed. She rolled twice before landing on her feet, looking up at him with a confused tilt of her head. Aiden took a deep breath, telling himself not to argue with the fox. He stood to straighten his robes and noticed several silver hairs clinging to the sleeve. "You are not to sleep on my bed again," he said coldly. Lyra blinked, then shifted into her human form, standing on the cot to look down at him. "Fine, then you can sleep in mine." Aiden turned and walked out. Lyra leaped off the bed and tackled him from behind, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Aiden, don't go. I am sorry." "Let go." "No." She rubbed her cheek against his back. "You're so warm. It's nice to hug you." Aiden could feel heat rising in his ears. He tried to pry her fingers off his robes. "This is completely improper." "You're so cute when you're shy," she sing-songed, holding on even tighter. Just then, a young novice's voice came from outside the door. "Brother Aiden, it's time for morning prayers." Aiden froze. "Quick, change back," he hissed. Lyra pouted, but reluctantly let go. She didn't shift back, however. Instead, she strode to the door and flung it open. "Brother Aiden is..." The novice, Leo, stopped mid-sentence, his jaw dropping as he stared at the silver-haired, fox-eared beauty before him. Lyra smiled sweetly. "Good morning, little brother." Leo's face turned bright red. "Gee, good morning, miss." Aiden moved swiftly, pulling Lyra behind him. "Leo," he said, forcing a calm tone. "You go on ahead. I'll be there shortly." Leo nodded dumbly, then turned and walked away like a wind-up toy, glancing back over his shoulder. Seeing this, Lyra immediately grabbed Aiden's arm and shot the novice a possessive glare. Aiden waited until Leo was gone, then shook her off. "What was that for?" "Claiming my territory," Lyra said matter-of-factly. "You mind? No one else gets to have you." A vein throbbed in Aiden's temple. "That's ridiculous." Lyra leaned in close, whispering in his ear. "Your ears are so red. Does that mean you like it?" Aiden stepped back, his face a stern mask. "I'm going to morning prayers. You will stay here, and you will not cause any trouble." "I want to come," Lyra declared. "Absolutely not." "Why not?" "You are a woman and a spirit. You cannot enter the chapel." Lyra's eyes darted around. "Then I'll go as a fox." Aiden frowned. "That's also forbidden." "Then give me a kiss, and I'll stay here quietly," she said, standing on her toes and puckering her lips. Aiden turned and walked away, his pace doubling. "If you don't kiss me, I'm following you," she yelled after him. Aiden stopped, without turning around. He said sternly, "Change into a fox. Stay close, and do not make a sound." Lyra let out a whoop of joy, shifted into her silver fox form, and bounded after him. Inside the chapel, the brothers were chanting. Aiden knelt in the front row, his gaze fixed forward. Lyra lay quietly beside him, only the tip of her tail twitching occasionally. Peace be with you, and also with you. The rhythmic chanting washed over the room. At first, Lyra found it interesting, but she quickly grew bored. She looked up at Aiden. He was incredibly handsome when he was praying, his profile sharp, his lips moving silently, the line of his throat taut. An idea sparked her mind. She scooted closer and rested her head on his thigh. Aiden's chanting faltered for a fraction of a second, but he didn't open his eyes. Emboldened, Lyra nudged his leg with her head. His fingers tightened on his meditation beads, making a soft, clicking sound. Smirking to herself, Lyra reached out with her tongue and gave the back of his hand a quick lick. Aiden's eyes flew open. He glared down at her. Lyra just blinked innocently, wagging her tail. He took a deep breath and continued his prayers, but he moved his hands to his lap, out of her reach. Lyra simply pawed at his robes instead. The brother kneeling next to Aiden, a kind-faced man named Elias, noticed the commotion. "Aiden," he whispered, "what's this?" Aiden didn't miss a beat. "An injured fox from the forest. I'm tending to it for a few days." Elias smiled. "It seems to have taken a liking to you." Hearing this, Lyra flicked her tail triumphantly in Aiden's direction. When prayers finally ended, Aiden practically fled the chapel. Lyra trotted to keep up, shifting back into her human form once they were alone and grabbing his arm. "So, was I a good girl?" she asked, fishing for compliment. "No," he said, his face grim. Lyra pouted. "Why not? I didn't say a word." Yep. Aiden thought of her antics in the chapel and felt his ears burn again. "In any case, you are not coming to prayers again." Her eyes lit up. "Okay, but only if you promise me one thing." "What is it?" "Give me a tour of the monastery," she said excitedly. "I've been here all this time, and I haven't seen anything." Aiden wanted to refuse, but he knew if he didn't agree, she would only cause more chaos. He reluctantly nodded. "Fine. Just once." Lyra cheered and pulled him by the hand, breaking into a run. "Let's start with the Great Hall." "Slow down." Aiden stumbled behind her. She just ran faster, her laughter echoing down the stone corridors. "Come on, Slowpoke." The other brothers they passed stared in open-mouthed shock. Brother Aiden, known for his unshakable calm, being dragged around like a child. "Let go of my hand," Aiden hissed. Lyra glanced back and made a face at him. No, he had no choice but to keep up, lest he be pulled flat on his face. When they reached the Great Hall, Lyra gazed around in wonder. "Wow, that statue is huge." She dropped Aiden's hand and ran up to the towering wooden carving of the Order's founder. "So this is the guy you all pray to?" Aiden straightened his rumpled robes. "Show some respect." But Lyra had already shifted into a fox and scrambled onto the offering table, where she started rummaging through a bowl of fruit. "Get down from there," Aiden said, horrified. She grabbed an apple in her mouth, gave him a wink, and then started munching on it right at the statue's feet. Aiden strode forward to grab her, but she deftly leaped onto the statue's shoulder, looking down at him. "You little heathen!" Aiden was genuinely angry now. Seeing his expression, Lyra's ears drooped. She obediently jumped down into his arms and licked his hand apologetically. Aiden was ready to scold her, but when he looked down into her big, pleading eyes, the words died in his throat. 14. "Don't be mad," Lyra said, shifting back to human form but staying in his arms. She nuzzled his chest. "I was just curious about what your founder looked like." Aiden sighed. "This is a holy place. It's not to be desecrated." "Then teach me how to pray," Lyra said, still nestled against him. Yes," she said earnestly. "I want to learn about the things you believe in." Aiden was taken aback. He hadn't expected that. After a moment of silence, he said softly, "First, get down." Lyra hopped out of his arms, but kept a firm grip on his hand. He led her to a prayer cushion. "To pray, you must have a sincere heart. You kneel, clasp your hands, and bow your head." Lyra mimicked him, but her 9 tails kept getting in the way. "Aiden, my tails are making this awkward." Aiden pressed his lips together. "Then don't kneel." "No, I want to do it right." She insisted. Her eyes lit up. "I know. You can hold them down for me." Before he could process the request, she had taken his hand and placed it on the small of her back. "Just like that. Press down right here so they stay put." Aiden's palm was flat against her back, the thin silk of her dress doing little to hide her warmth. He tried to pull his hand away, but she held it fast. "Don't move, I'm praying," she said with a pious expression, and actually began to bow her head. Aiden's hand was trapped. The spot under his palm was slender and warm, and he could feel the gentle curve of her spine. His breath hitched, and he forced himself to look away. 15. After 3 bows, Lyra turned to him, beaming. "How did I do?" Aiden snatched his hand back. "Adequate," he said, trying to sound nonchalant, but she noticed the red tips of his ears. "So, do I get a reward?" she asked slyly. "Prayer is its own reward. But I was such a good student," she wheedled, leaning in close. "How about a kiss as a prize?" Aiden took a step back. "Preposterous." Lyra pouted. "Fine. Then you can let me kiss you." Aiden turned and walked away. "Hey, don't run away," she laughed, chasing after him. As they left the hall, they ran into Leo, the young novice. He saw Lyra and blushed again. "Giga day, miss." Lyra immediately linked her arm through Aiden's. "Good day to you, too, little brother," she said sweetly. Aiden tried to pull his arm free, but she held on tight. Leo stared at them, his eyes suddenly welling up. "Brother Aiden, who is she?" Before Aiden could explain, Lyra chirped, "I'm his wife." Leo looked like he'd been struck by lightning. "Do not speak such lies." Aiden snapped. He turned to Leo. "This is a fox spirit from the forest. Pay no mind to her nonsense." Leo looked doubtful. But she... Lyra suddenly shifted into a fox and leaped onto Aiden's shoulder, baring her teeth at the novice. Leo yelped and stumbled back. Aiden lifted Lyra off his shoulder. "I apologize. She startled you." Leo shook his head, but he couldn't help asking, "Brother Aiden, are you really going to keep a creature like that?" Before Aiden could answer, Lyra shifted back and threw her arms around his waist. "He's not keeping me. I'm keeping him." Aiden was mortified. Leo was speechless. The silence was excruciating. 16. In the end, Aiden practically dragged Lyra away. "So, is that little novice in love with you?" she asked, a sour note in her voice, once they were back in his cell. Aiden was trying to smooth out his robes. "Don't be ridiculous. I saw the way he looked at you," she huffed. "From now on, you're not allowed to see him alone." Aiden ignored her and poured a cup of tea. Lyra snatched the cup, downed it in one gulp, and planted herself in front of him. "You mine. No one else can have you," she said, her expression deadly serious. Aiden looked at her face, so close to his, and his breath caught. "Step back." "No," she purred, leaning even closer. "You smell too good. Let me get another whiff." He reached out to push her away, but his hand accidentally brushed against the soft curve of her chest. He recoiled as if burned, his ears flaming. My apologies." Lyra blinked, then her eyes lit up. "You touched me. Now you have to take responsibility." Aiden turned his head away. "It was an accident, so I can accidentally touch you too?" Lyra asked, reaching for him. He dodged back. "No." She stuck out her lower lip. "That's not fair. You can touch me, but I can't touch you." Aiden took a deep breath, trying to reason with her. Men and women should not be so familiar. We must maintain a proper distance. "But I'm not a man or a woman. I'm a fox spirit," she retorted. "Besides, you're a man of faith. You're supposed to be above such worldly distinctions." Aiden realized he could never win a debate with her. "Regardless, you are not to come so close to me again," he said sternly. Lyra's eyes twinkled. "Promise me one thing, and I won't." "What?" "Teach me to read your sacred texts," she said eagerly. "I want to learn everything you know." Aiden was about to refuse, but then he considered it. If he could educate her, perhaps she would become more civilized. He nodded. "Very well." Lyra cheered and magically produced a stack of books. "Let's start today." Aiden frowned. "Where did you get these?" "I borrowed them from the scriptorium," she said breezily. Last night, while you were meditating." Aiden rubbed his temples and decided it was better not to ask any more questions. They sat at his desk, and Aiden opened a book to begin. At first, Lyra listened intently, but she soon grew restless. "Aiden, how do you say this word? Aiden, what does this sentence mean? Aiden, your voice is so nice. Can you read that part again?" He answered her questions patiently, but he noticed she was inching closer and closer until she was practically leaning on him. Sit properly, he said, nudging her. Ouch, she cried, clutching her forehead. The book hit me. Aiden stared at her. I did not hit you with a book. Yes, you did, she said pitifully. You have to kiss it to make it better. Aiden closed the book, stood up, and started to walk away. Lyra quickly grabbed his sleeve. Don't go. I'm sorry, I'll be good. He pulled his arm free. You cannot learn if your heart isn't in it. Seeing that he was genuinely annoyed, she sat up straight. It is. I'm really trying. Please don't be mad. Aiden watched her for a moment. Seeing she had settled down, he returned to his seat. Let's continue. This time, Lyra behaved. She listened carefully and asked sensible questions. Aiden gradually relaxed, his voice softening. You're a really good teacher, she said at the end, propping her chin in her hands and gazing at him with open admiration. Aiden avoided her eyes. We'll continue tomorrow. So, do I get a reward for being so good? She asked hopefully. What reward? I studied so hard. Can I please sleep in your room tonight? No, he said flatly. On the roof, then. In the branches of the cedar tree. On the stone steps outside your door. Aiden finally sighed. Change into a fox. You may sleep on the cushion in the corner. Lyra cheered, immediately shifted into her fox form, and did a happy dance on the cushion before wagging her tail at him. Aiden shook his head, but a barely perceptible smile touched his lips. Late that night, Aiden was meditating on his cot. Lyra, as a fox, was curled up on her cushion, seemingly fast asleep. Moonlight streamed through the window, bathing her in a silver glow. Quietly, Aiden got up, walked over, and gently draped a thin blanket over her. As he turned to leave, she suddenly opened her eyes and bit his sleeve. Aiden started. You were faking? Lyra shifted back into her human form, a grin on her face. I knew you cared about me. Aiden looked away. I was just worried you'd get cold and start bothering me. Lyra suddenly launched herself at him and planted a soft kiss on his cheek. That's a reward for caring. Aiden froze, touching the spot where her lips had been. You. But Lyra had already shifted back into a fox, curling up under the blanket with only her mischievous eyes peeking out. Aiden stared at her for a long moment before letting out a helpless sigh and returning to his cot. Good night, Aiden, Lyra whispered. He didn't answer, but with his back to her, his heart refused to settle down. Aiden. The next morning, as Aiden was transcribing a text, Lyra burst into his cell, her 9 tails fluffed up in agitation. What is all the commotion? Aiden asked without looking up, his pen moving steadily across the parchment. Lyra snatched the pen from his hand. Stop writing. There's a horrible woman here. He finally looked up, a frown creasing his brow. Ooh, some overdressed rich girl with a dozen servants. Said she's from the capital. Lyra fumed. The second she arrived, she started asking for you. She's heading this way right now. Aiden's expression didn't change. If she is a visitor, we will treat her with courtesy. Lyra stomped her foot in frustration. You don't get it. The way she looks at you is like a wolf looking at a lamb. Just then, a delicate voice, accompanied by the clinking of fine jewelry, drifted from outside. Is brother Aiden within? Aiden rose and opened the door. A young woman in a lavender silk dress stood in the small courtyard, attended by 2 maids. She was beautiful and poised, clearly from a wealthy family. I am brother Aiden. How may I help you, miss? He asked, bowing his head slightly. The woman curtsied gracefully. My name is Clarissa Sterling. My father is Senator Sterling. I have heard much of your wisdom, and I've come to seek your guidance. Lyra poked her head out from behind Aiden. He's busy, she snarled. No time for you. Clarissa's eyes widened slightly at the sight of Lyra, but she quickly composed herself. And this is... Aiden moved to block Lyra from view. A guest at the monastery. I'm not just a guest. Lyra protested, grabbing Aiden's arm. I'm his Lyra, Aiden warned a low voice. She pouted and reluctantly let go. Clarissa smiled politely. I see. If you have guests, brother Aiden, I can return another day. Before Aiden could respond, Lyra jumped in. Great. And don't bother coming back then either. Lyra. Aiden shot her a sharp look, then turned back to Clarissa. Please forgive her. If you wish to discuss matters of faith, I will be in the scriptorium tomorrow at dawn. Clarissa's face lit up. Thank you, brother Aiden. I will see you then. As she left, she cast a long, calculating look at Lyra. The The moment Clarissa was gone, Lyra exploded. Why did you agree to see her? Aiden returned to his desk and picked up his pen. Guiding others is part of my duty. Lyra leaped onto the desk, blocking his view. But she's obviously trying to get into your robes. Nonsense. It's not nonsense, Lyra said, her tails thrashing. She looks at you the way I look at honey cakes. Aiden set down his pen. Do not be difficult. Lyra hopped off the desk, shifted into a fox, and curled into a sulking ball in the corner. You're playing favorites. You're so nice to her, but you're always mean to me. Aiden looked at the little silver ball of fur and felt a pang of something soft. If you behave, he said quietly, I'll ask the cook to save you a honey cake after dinner. Lyra's ears twitched. She didn't turn around. Two, she mumbled. Phoenix. She immediately sprang up, ran over, and rubbed against his leg. You're the best, Aiden. He shook his head, but the corner of his mouth tilted upward. The next morning, the abbot summoned Aiden. Aiden, Senator Sterling's daughter wishes to stay with us for a fortnight to study our teachings. She has specifically requested you as her guide. What are your thoughts? Before Aiden could answer, Lyra, who had been eavesdropping, burst in. No way. The abbot jumped. And who is this? Aiden grabbed Lyra. Abbot, forgive me. This is Miss Lyra, a guest. Lyra shifted into a fox, scrambled onto Aiden's shoulder, and hissed at the abbot. The old man looked from the furious fox to Aiden's embarrassed face and stroked his beard thoughtfully. It seems you've been quite busy lately, Aiden. Aiden's ears turned red. Abbot, about Miss Sterling. I have already agreed, the abbot said with a placid smile. The senator is one of our greatest patrons. We cannot refuse his daughter's request for spiritual guidance. Lyra whispered fiercely in Aiden's ear. She's not looking for spiritual guidance. She's looking for you. Aiden squeezed her paw as a warning and said to the abbot, I understand. As soon as they left the abbot's office, Lyra shifted back and blocked Aiden's path. You're really going to teach that woman? The abbot has given his word. Then what about me? Lyra's eyes suddenly filled with tears. Now that you have a new student, are you going to get rid of me? Aiden was stunned by her logic. I haven't taken any students. But you're teaching her, Lyra cried, grabbing his sleeve. I asked you to teach me first. Seeing her tear-filled eyes, Aiden's heart softened. If you wish to learn, you may join us. Her face lit up. Really? Yes. And you'll have to hold my hand the whole time. Aiden turned and walked away. Aiden, wait for me, she called, running after him. In the scriptorium, Clarissa was already waiting. She rose gracefully when Aiden entered, but her smile froze when she saw Lyra trailing behind him. Brother Aiden, this is, she asked, her voice strained. Miss Lyra will be joining our lesson, Aiden said simply. A flicker of annoyance crossed Clarissa's face, but she masked it quickly. Of course, it would be an honor to learn alongside Miss Lyra. Lyra just snorted and sat down next to Aiden, pressing herself against his side. Aiden cleared his throat and began the lesson. Clarissa was an attentive student, asking insightful questions that led to a thoughtful discussion. Lyra, however, quickly grew bored. She fidgeted with Aiden's meditation beads, tugged on his sleeve, and eventually just rested her head on his shoulder and yawned. Miss Lyra seems uninterested, Clarissa said with a tight smile. Perhaps you should go rest. I can keep Brother Aiden company. Who said I'm not interested? Lyra shot back, sitting up straight. She grabbed a random text and pretended to read. As it is written, what comes next? Aiden gently took the book from her. If you do not wish to listen, you don't have to. Lyra pouted. Dull. It's just that these books are so dry. Her eyes gleamed. Why don't you teach me something more practical? Such as, Lyra leaned close and whispered in his ear, like how to make someone fall in love with you. Heat flooded Aiden's face. Absurd. Clarissa watched them, her hands twisting the silk handkerchief in her lap. Miss Lyra is certainly lively, she said through a forced smile. Lyra gave her a triumphant smirk. Of course, Aiden loves it. The lesson ended in a cloud of awkward tension. As Clarissa left, she said softly to Aiden, Tomorrow, I was hoping we could discuss the Heart Sutra. Perhaps. Alone. No way. Lyra cut in. He's busy with me tomorrow. Clarissa's smile didn't waver. Miss Lyra, this is a place of peace. I suggest you moderate your behavior. Before Lyra could retort, Aiden spoke. Dawn tomorrow. Both of you are welcome. Clarissa curtsied and left, casting one last dark look at Lyra. Once she was gone, Lyra shifted into a fox and rolled around at Aiden's feet. I hate that woman. Aiden bent down and picked her up. She has done nothing to you. The way she looks at me is like I'm a bug, she whined. And she's trying to have you all to herself. He stroked her head. You're imagining things. Lyra relaxed under his touch, then looked up. Do you like women like her? Aiden's hand stilled. Those of my order do not concern themselves with such things. Liar. Lyra shifted back and threw her arms around his neck. You obviously like me more. He tried to push her away, but she clung tighter. Let go. No. She buried her face in his neck. You smell so good. Resigned, Aiden carried her out of the scriptorium. The brothers they passed stared, but Aiden kept his face impassive, even as his ears burned crimson. Back in his cell, Aiden set her down. I need to prepare for evening meditation. Lyra grabbed his sleeve. Aiden, when she comes back tomorrow, I'm going to make her give up. He frowned. Do not cause trouble. Lyra's grin was wicked. Don't worry, she purred. I'll be subtle. Looking at her eager expression, Aiden had a very bad feeling. The next morning, Lyra was up before the sun. She rummaged through her things and pulled out her most dazzling crimson dress. She meticulously groomed her 9 tails and tucked a wild camellia behind her ear. Aiden, how do I look? She asked, twirling in front of him. He opened his eyes from his meditation and his breath caught. In the morning light, she was breathtaking. The red silk made her skin look like snow, and her 9 tails fanned out behind her like a peacock's train. It is improper, he finally managed, looking away. Lyra pouted. Not even one little compliment. She leaned in. How about a kiss for a compliment? Aiden quickly stood. It is time to go to the scriptorium. Wait for me, she called, chasing after him. Clarissa was already seated in the scriptorium. She started to rise when Aiden entered, but she froze when she saw Lyra. Today, Lyra was so vibrant and alive that Clarissa's own elegant attire seemed drab by comparison. Good morning, Clarissa, Lyra chirped, deliberately linking her arm with Aiden's. Clarissa forced a smile. You look very festive today, Lyra. Aiden thinks so too, Lyra declared. Aiden said nothing, gently extracting his arm and sitting down. Today, we will discuss the Heart Sutra. Clarissa took a deep breath and regained her composure. Thank you, Brother Aiden. The lesson began. To Aiden's surprise, Lyra was quiet and attentive, even asking a few intelligent questions. You seem quite focused today, Lyra, Clarissa remarked. Lyra smiled sweetly. It's because Aiden is such a wonderful teacher. She leaned toward him. Aiden, what does this part mean? Form is emptiness. Just as he was about to explain, Lyra leaned in and planted a quick, soft kiss on his cheek. Is it like this? Aiden froze, stunned. The teacup in Clarissa's hand slipped and shattered on the floor. Lyra! Aiden's voice was sharp with disbelief. Lyra blinked innocently. Well, you said form is emptiness, so the kiss is empty too, right? Clarissa's face was ashen. She shot to her feet. I must be going. She fled without another word. Aiden rubbed his temples. You did that on purpose. Lyra swished her tails proudly. That's what she gets for trying to steal you. Aiden let out a long, weary sigh, but he wasn't truly angry. The battle between Lyra and Clarissa only escalated. When Clarissa brought Aiden a specially prepared vegetarian meal, Lyra accidentally knocked it over. When Clarissa asked for a lesson in calligraphy, Lyra turned into a fox and left inky paw prints all over the parchment. When Clarissa gave Aiden a new set of meditation beads, Lyra hid them and replaced them with a bracelet woven from her own tail fur. Aiden was caught in the middle, exasperated but helpless. 25. One day, Clarissa cornered Lyra in the monastery garden. We need to talk, she said, her usual gentle demeanor gone, replaced by a cold fury. Lyra, who had been chasing butterflies, shifted back to her human form. About what? What kind of creature are you? And why are you clinging to Brother Aiden? Clarissa demanded. Lyra raised an eyebrow. Oh, so you know. The scent of your cheap magic is obvious. You're not fooling anyone, Clarissa sneered. I suggest you leave. Brother Aiden is a holy man. He is not for a thing like you to defile. Lyra laughed. Wow, the mask finally comes off. Aren't you tired of pretending to be so prim and proper? A vicious glint appeared in Clarissa's eyes. You little witch. Don't think your pretty face gives you the right to run wild. She pulled a small, silver medallion from her sleeve. My family has protected this monastery for generations. This charm will send you back to whatever hell you crawled out of. Lyra just scoffed. Is that it? She blew a soft breath, and the medallion flared with heat, turning black and falling from Clarissa's hand. Clarissa gasped. You! Lyra advanced, her 9 tails fanning out, a wave of ancient power radiating from her. Listen to me, little girl. You don't want to make me angry, because if you do, she flashed a hint of her sharp canines. I can't promise I'll be gentle. Clarissa scrambled backward in terror, tripped, and fell into the lotus pond behind her. Help! Someone help me! She shrieked, flailing in the water. 26. Lyra stood on the bank, laughing. How's the water, Clarissa? Refreshing. A group of brothers rushed over and hauled the sputtering woman out of the pond. She was soaked, her makeup ruined, looking nothing like the polished lady she pretended to be. She pushed me. Clarissa sobbed, pointing a trembling finger at Lyra. Everyone turned to look at Lyra, who just shrugged. I never touched her. She fell in all by herself. Liar, you used your magic on me. Clarissa screamed. Just then, Aiden arrived. What happened here? He asked, his voice low and commanding. Clarissa immediately ran and clung to his leg. Brother Aiden, this creature tried to kill me. You have to do something. Aiden looked at Lyra, who just pouted. She fell, and she called me a creature. Aiden was silent for a moment. Then he helped Clarissa to her feet. Miss Sterling, you are distressed. Please go and change into some dry clothes. Clarissa stared at him in disbelief. You're just going to let her get away with it? Aiden's face was calm. There is no evidence she pushed you, and if she truly meant you harm, you would not be here to speak of it. Clarissa's face went from white to red with rage. Finally, she allowed her maids to lead her away. After the crowd dispersed, Aiden looked at Lyra. You didn't push her? Lyra's lip trembled. You don't believe me either? He sighed. Let's go back. As she followed him, Lyra muttered, well, she shouldn't have called me a creature and threatened to use that stupid charm on me. Aiden stopped. She threatened you? Yes. Lyra nodded emphatically. She had a silver medallion and everything. A coldness entered Aiden's eyes. Stay away from her from now on. Lyra's face lit up. Are you worried about me? Aiden didn't answer and kept walking, but his ears were turning a telltale shade of pink. That evening, a message came from Clarissa. She was cutting her visit short, claiming the shock was too much for her. When Lyra heard the news, she danced around the cell. Hooray, the wicked witch is gone. Aiden was transcribing a text. He looked up. You seem pleased. Lyra leaped on his back. Of course. Now you're all mine again. He sighed and set down his pen. Get off. Nope, she said, resting her chin on his shoulder. I was horribly insulted today. I need to be comforted. How were you insulted? Clarissa called me a creature, she huffed, and she tried to exorcise me. Aiden was quiet for a moment. You are not a creature, he said softly. Lyra froze, a warmth spreading through her chest. Then what am I? He didn't answer, but his ears turned even redder. Lyra's eyes twinkled. She leaned in and whispered, I'm your little fox, aren't I? The string of Aiden's meditation beads snapped, sending wooden beads scattering across the floor. Lyra giggled and hopped down to help him pick them up. You're blushing again. Aiden watched her, a flicker of genuine affection in his eyes. Late that night, Lyra slept in her fox form at the foot of Aiden's cot. Moonlight bathed her silver fur. Aiden quietly got up, lifted her into his arms, and placed her on the pillow next to his head. Just for tonight, he whispered, then lay down, sharing his pillow with the silver fox. In her sleep, Lyra nuzzled his cheek and let out a soft, contented sigh. The moon was a silver disk in the ink-black sky. Aiden sat meditating on his cot. Ever since Clarissa had left, Lyra had claimed a permanent spot in his bed, as a fox curled into a warm, breathing ball of fluff, her 9 tails a soft blanket. He opened his eyes and looked at her. He had grown accustomed to her presence, to the warmth beside him in the quiet dark. Sometimes he would wake to find she had shifted into her human form, her limbs tangled with his, and he no longer felt the initial shock and panic. A fateful complication, he murmured, gently stroking her head. The fox purred in her sleep, nudging his hand. A faint smile touched Aiden's lips. Suddenly, her body twitched. A pained whimper escaped her. Lyra, Aiden leaned closer. She didn't wake, but her body began to tremble violently. An unnatural flush radiated from beneath her silver fur, and a faint pink light started to pulse around her, her power leaking uncontrollably into the room. What's happening? Aiden frowned, reaching to wake her. The moment his hand touched her, he felt a searing heat. Her temperature was dangerously high. Hot, so hot, Lyra moaned, shifting back into her human form. Her cheeks were flushed, her silver hair in disarray, and her silk dress was soaked with sweat. Lyra, wake up! He gathered her into his arms. She cracked her eyes open, her amber irises glowing with a strange golden light. Aiden, it hurts. He placed her back on the cot and fetched a cool, damp cloth for her forehead. Did you eat something that disagreed with you? She shook her head, grabbing his wrist. Don't go. I feel like something inside me is trying to get out. As she spoke, the pink light around her exploded outward, a powerful wave of energy. The meditation beads on Aiden's wrist flared with a blinding golden light of their own, intertwining with hers. A bloodline awakening. Aiden realized with a jolt. The abbot had spoken of this. An ancient rite of passage for powerful spirits. A painful transformation that required an immense amount of energy to survive. Lyra curled into a ball, her nails elongating into sharp claws. Aiden, help me. It hurts so much. His heart clenched. Without thinking, he pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. I'm here. Her feverish body pressed against his. So cold and so hot. Hold me tighter. He tightened his embrace. Strangely, as his own spiritual energy met hers, her pain seemed to lessen. Is that better? He whispered. She nodded against his chest, her breath still ragged. You feel so good. Aiden realized that his own life force, honed by years of meditation, was flowing into her. She was absorbing it like a starving woman, and the chaotic energy around her began to stabilize. I see, he murmured. You need my energy to balance your own. She looked up at him, her golden eyes pleading. Can you give me more? Before he could answer, she surged up and kissed him. Aiden froze, his mind wiped clean. Her lips were hot and soft, moving against his with an instinctual urgency. She didn't seem to know what she was doing, only that she needed to be closer, to draw from the calm strength she found in his breath. He should have pushed her away, but his hands, acting on their own, tightened around her waist. An unprecedented heat bloomed in his chest, shattering the dam of discipline he had maintained for a lifetime. Lyra, he whispered, his voice thick with a longing that stunned him. She pulled back slightly, her gaze luminous. Aiden, is this okay? In that moment, he knew exactly what she was asking. He should have said no, but he simply nodded. A look of pure joy lit up her face, and she kissed him again. This time, he responded, meeting her inexperienced passion with a deep, consuming tenderness. I love you, she murmured against his lips, her hands slipping inside his robes. His breath grew heavy. As her touch explored his skin, he shifted, pressing her down into the mattress. Are you sure? He asked, his voice raw, his eyes burning with a fire she had never seen. Lyra shook her head, her nine tails wrapping around his waist. I only want you. That was all it took. He bent his head and captured her mouth, his hands tracing the lines of her body as robes and silk fell away. The next morning, Aiden awoke to find Lyra propped on his chest, watching him. She was back to her usual self, but the power humming beneath her skin was vastly stronger. Morning, she chirped, pecking him on the lips. The memories of the night flooded back, and his ears burned. He began, his voice hoarse. I broke my vows. Lyra blinked. Do you regret it? He was silent for a long moment, then slowly shook his head. No. Her face lit up. She threw her arms around him. Then leave the monastery. Marry me. He gently stroked her hair. Your power. It's fully awakened, she said excitedly. I'm a true celestial fox now. It's all thanks to you. He noticed for the first time a single streak of gold in the fur at the base of each of her tails. A celestial fox, he repeated, awed. That is the royal line of your kind. See? Marrying me is a pretty good deal, she said proudly. He chuckled. Then his expression grew serious. Lyra, are you certain you won't be with a former brother? I have nothing. She pressed her fingers to his lips. I only want you. Nothing else matters. She gave him a wicked look. Besides, you weren't exactly a reluctant participant last night. His ears turned crimson again. Do not speak of it. So, is that a yes? She pressed. Looking into her hopeful eyes, he sighed. Yes. Aiden stood before the abbot, having shed his white robes for a simple tunic. You are certain, Aiden? The old man asked. I am, Aiden said, his voice clear. My heart is no longer here. I cannot stay and dishonor this place. The abbot sighed. I always knew that fox would be your destiny. He handed Aiden a small pouch of coins. Go. May you find the peace you seek. 3 days later, in a small cottage at the foot of the mountain, Aiden waited. Lyra, dressed in a simple white dress with wildflowers in her hair, walked toward him. Leo stood by as their only witness. They exchanged simple vows as the sun set, promising to walk their new path together. That night, Lyra lay curled in his arms. Aiden, she said softly, my people live for a very, very long time. He held her hand. I know. And you? I will be with you, he said, cutting her off, for as long as I have. She hugged him tightly. Promise. He kissed her forehead. I promise. Outside, the moon shone down, a silent witness to a love that had defied every rule, bridging the gap between a man of faith and a creature of the wild.